All right, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm joined by Padamsey, CEO of You Feel You. Sam, thanks for joining Legacies, man. Finally.
It's. I feel like it's so overdue. I'm such a huge fan of everything Legacies is doing, and it's good to have like a trusted media source in this industry. We're such a new industry, and there's so many things we're just still building out infrastructurally, and
Yeah,
But I'm sure we'll dive more into that as we kind of go through
yeah,
the
for
episode.
sure.
But yeah, no,
Well,
thanks again.
we've been a big fan of You Feel You and yours for quite some time as well, and I think that it was just a matter of time. It's like, how do we coordinate schedules? We finally got some time to meet and chat. Loved your dog was on the call as well, just driving you insane. Hopefully, maybe make an appearance today. I don't know. We'll see.
No,
But
no, no. I asked the missus to take them for a walk for this
okay.
episode. So
No,
so no
mine.
no Stella or Dexter today.
Okay, mine tend to join the studio once in a while. I mean, I've got it, curtained off, but every once in a while they'll sneak through and come in. Listen, man, it takes some bold. Let me just say, it takes some big balls to move into the wellness category of cannabis. I want to get into that, but first, I'd really like to understand your background because I think you were like me. I was in real estate, and I think you were doing mortgages at one point in time, right? And then
I was.
you moved into, hey, I'm going to create a brand for this brand new industry, but like many, some of us have some legacy roots. I'm not sure. Maybe you can share. But I think that we really want to hit the challenges of what's going on in this industry because, I mean, this is part of a platform, right? And one way to do it, but how do we resonate that with, I guess, policymakers at the end of the day? So we'll back up and we'll understand, what were you doing? Where was that eureka moment that you decided, I'm going to go into the legacy market, into the legal market?
Absolutely. No. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll start a little bit with myself. So I was actually a mortgage broker. I'm originally from Vancouver, moved out here 3 years ago for the business, but I was a mortgage broker for 7 years out there, and just happened to, in terms of getting into the cannabis space, accidentally with a friend opened up the mail order back pre-legalization, and we got kind of involved.
Accidentally.
That's yeah, I could yeah, that's a long story, but yeah, so we kind of got into that space, and then we got into product development from there, on that side of the before times, and from there started really getting interested into CBD, and we're seeing that was when like CBD isolate just started like popping up in the black market, and everybody was like, "What do you do with it? Do you dab it? Do you put it into a drink?"
Yeah. I'm thinking
And so
CBD and legacy, like they really didn't fit at the time. I mean, there was some, don't get me wrong, and there still is. Well, it's very prominent, especially in the US. But in my legacy days, it wasn't, where do I get some CBD?
Yeah, no, 100%. And so I started looking more into it, and then looking at the US market and seeing what the trends were there, because like everybody was just like literally selling like 1 gram jars of isolate up here, not knowing what to do with it. So we started looking into product development and the benefits and the research, and just went down a rabbit hole and got really interested in it. And it kind of threw me back also to an earlier time in my life. So I actually I lost my mom at a young age, like in my early 20s, to she had breast cancer and metastasized to her bones, and she lasted for 4 years, and she was a fighter, but it was stage 4 as soon as it was found. And coming from the East Indian background, there's a lot of stigma in our community. And with that, I was looking into just like she was on the fentanyl patches during
Oh yeah.
radiation and chemotherapy, and it just to manage the pain. But then the fentanyl patches would cause the nausea, and then obviously she was on chemotherapy, and then everything's just kind of like building on each other. So I started looking into like cannabis as a solution when I was in my young 20s, and more specifically into CBD because it was non-intoxicating. And this was pre-legalization. We had the dispensaries downtown in Vancouver, the gray market medical dispensaries where you had to have a note and a card and doctor and all that. And so I was able, with a lot of effort, to convince her to go with me, to go look, and to and it was a lot of work. And then honestly, it was like almost like talking to a child, because she's like, "What's my mom gonna say? What's my brother gonna say?" And
Right,
it's like,
right.
Yeah,
Was there
so there
was
was.
there anything in there? I'm just curious because I caught a post not long ago, and it was about Ayurvedic solutions, and being from Indian heritage, this is where it's born from, right? Like, was there any convincing there, or was it like I'm just dealing with enough? Like cannabis as an alternative medicine, Ayurvedic background. Like, I'm just curious how that kind of tied in that conversation potentially.
Yeah, so like she was very open to things holistically outside of what she was doing for managing pain.
Hmm.
As soon as I started talking about cannabis, the wall went up.
Okay,
So
the
I had
stigma.
to,
Yeah,
the stigma, and I had
yeah.
to chip away at that. And I did finally convince her to go down with me downtown
Hmm.
and visit one of these shops. But the shops weren't the nice shops that you see today. The packaging, the products weren't approachable. And we ended up buying some CBD Phoenix tears. We got home. She just refused to have it.
Mm.
And so that kind of like looking into CBD, fast forward all those years forward when we're looking into product development, it just like it kind of a light bulb went off in my head in terms of like, hey, it's really important how we deliver this the first time to people because like and that goes for THC as well. Like, you might have customers that are kind of curious, maybe in their 30s today, that might stumble into, Spirit Leaf Little Italy, shout out to Clifford, and might purchase, ask for advice and want to have an edible to help them sleep. And if they get like, like a 10 milligram like nano emulsified tablet from Moon Rocks, great product, but that's probably not going to be a good first experience for them. Now you've ruined cannabis for that person with that stigma for like when they might need it later on. And so
Mm.
that's kind of like what really got me excited about product development in CBD is like, how can we bring something together in such an appropriate, approachable manner that really delivers a good experience for and something that can be respected by a connoisseur in terms of the
Hmm.
product formulation, but delivered in a format that a new consumer could be like, hey, like this isn't scary to try. Like, and
Right.
then when they try it, it tastes good. It's got a nice texture. With their topical, it has a nice glide. Like it's easy to open. It looks cute. Like
Hmm.
these are all things like, I think CBD is like, it's such a, it's an entry point for cannabis for so many people. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important to deliver that in such a approachable way. And like, I think there's a lot of great brands doing it right now. Like even like, Tanner from Stewart Farms is doing an
Hmm.
amazing job with the bath bombs and even he's got a roller now too. And like, I'm really excited for wellness. I think, I know a lot of people are kind of skittish on it, but I think we're just getting started.
Yeah, I agree. One question. So, was it easier to educate a consumer in the legacy days or now?
Very much so in the legacy era because we used to run an e-commerce, so we were doing
Yeah.
SEO, we were doing influencer marketing, um, so we were speaking directly to the consumer. And we've gotten pretty good at it now, but the adjustment with the regulated market is like you have to speak one way to the provincial board to get the product in, then you have to speak another way to the buyer, then you have to speak another way to the bud tender,
Hmm.
and then you have to also provide the bud tender. Um, the framework to explain the product in an approachable way to the
Right.
consumer. So you have to hit like about 5 steps there
Yeah.
of different kind of messaging that all means the same.
Yeah. I had a
Um,
feeling I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear it direct from you, have gone through it, right? So, and I mean, that's part of the issue, I think, is that how do you ensure, like the bud tenders, let me ask you this straight out. Do bud tenders care about CBD right now?
Absolutely,
They do.
absolutely,
Okay. So
100%.
and I've seen the shift, right? So I figured that would be your response, but I've seen the shift. Like early days, brick and mortar starting to open up. It was THC, 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 but now I see it as smart retailers that properly educate their bud tenders, and then the brands that also come in to help educate on products. There's, you know, we're supplying product that's much needed. Okay, one medicinally as well, right? But then two is that interest is starting to change where now you've got the new we're using this can of curious a lot, right? Can of curious, but it could be someone that's just, they've caught an ad, they caught something. It could be they're getting US feeds, whatever, because there's some weird shit going on in the US still. But they enter these dispensaries, which in a lot of cases they're like, nah, I'm not into it. I don't want to get into that. But not all dispensaries are created equal, nor are all bud tenders, right? And some, I think you can after a conversation with them, you can tell, yeah, they are THC pro versus CBD. But how has it been with opening, and I need to step back a little bit, but how has it been with opening that market up for wellness? Because like we can't say wellness either, right? In the med side, we can talk about it and doctors can promote it, but it's still so weird on the retail side or the adult use rec market.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things there just to kind of unpackage that. So number one, I think the first thing that a lot of people don't realize, because we're in the industry, we're in the fight, we're in the middle of it. The recreational cannabis store is not the normal place to sell these kind of products.
Right.
So I think just acknowledging that is a big thing, and a lot of retail chains are doing a good job of acknowledging it and pivoting and adjusting around that. Like you talk about the We store down in Windsor, they're doing a phenomenal job. The Woods, just amazing job with their CBD shop concept. Even a lot of like I mentioned Spirit Leaf Little Italy. Cliff has a nice
I
CBD
love
cabinet.
Cliff. He's great.
Yeah, Cliff's a great dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of and I could name a lot more, but there's a lot of people realizing that you have to speak to this consumer differently. The other kind of I think challenges in terms of the growth of the wellness category is also sometimes expectations. A lot of these retail chains have the same expectations for the performance of a wellness product as they do of a THC product. So when they bring a case of 6 oils in and it takes 5 weeks to move, they're kind of like upset. But like for us, it's like, oh man, that store has potential to be a good
Right.
store for us, right?
Yeah.
Because they're used to getting a case of the latest, hottest flower in, and it sells in 2 days, right? So, and I think also part of what's playing into that is the wellness category right now. It's anywhere from 1 to 3% indexed of a menu,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with that, everybody is so squeezed on budget, so they want to contribute to that category, but at the same time, they have to survive. So they're like, do I bring that case of 6 in that could take 4 or 5 weeks to sell, but those customers will return and be really happy? Or do I bring that case of 12 in that's the same cost, and I could flip that in 3 days, buy something else, flip that, and get that velocity on that money? So I think there's a few different things going on, but we actually unpack this with Miles at Trellis. We work really closely with Trellis. And we've actually got data now showing, and I've been providing this to retailers as well, when you have 3, 4, or 5 youth products on a shelf in a store together, that wellness category in that store is growing month over month. So it's like you can start indexing more and more and more. The stores that have 0 or 1 in Ontario right now, their wellness sales from November to February were flat.
Wow.
Whereas I'm happy to even flip that over to you as well. But
I'd love to see some data where it shows, because I look at it. So one, I believe in wellness. I believe in these products and full spectrum. And I think that there's a lot of education that has to happen. And we'll get to that. But I look at it from a retailer. If I'm opening retail, and I do not have a background in retailing, okay, but knowing what I know now, which is just enough to be dangerous, is I'm looking at cart size. How do I up the cart size? What other products can I get in there? And so, yeah, okay, great. You have someone that entered the store looking for THC products, but also now here's the section over here. Have you thought about this, right? You mentioned, Stewart Farms and their bath bombs. Like those are, very holiday specific as well. I don't mean they're only for that, but put them on your counter, right? Something, and that's why I see, brands like yourself that, listen, we've curated some products here. You're in for THC, but hey, let's also look at this. Like there's other options here. You take an aspirin. Do you got Tiger Balm at home? Let's forget about that shit. And I think there's an expectation too, correct me if I'm wrong, that because of the instant onset high with THC, some people that are uneducated in the category, they expect, I've got, my elbow is just killing me. They put it on, they expect it to be gone immediately as well. Not realizing it's like other, I don't want to say pharmaceuticals, but other medicines that it's going to take some time. The efficacy needs to build over time for it.
for sure, 100%. And just to kind of like add to that, everything we do, we have 10 products now in the market. We're a CBD company, but we're just as equally a minor cannabinoid company. Like our products have CBG, CBN, CBC.
I love it. Yes.
And further to that, amazing strains, like, classic strains, I would say, like Sage and Sour by MTL Cannabis. People just go time and time again to that product,
Mhm.
and a lot of people don't understand why, but it's in my opinion, it's that secret 2 to 3% CBG.
Yeah.
So in terms of the opportunity to upsell what you're talking about, you could totally buy, like, if that customer comes in and says, hey, I smoke this blunt every night, this Benny Blunto every night to go to sleep, you could totally be like, oh, okay, that's dope. But if you paired that with these rest moments, these fast acting CBD, CBN pills made by Aspire with their rapid sense technology, now you're like engaging your receptors with all that experience of the
Yeah.
Benny Blunto and also the rest moments. You're gonna have a more targeted experience, and
Yeah.
that's, yeah, it's an upsell, right?
Well,
So,
I mean,
um,
that's where we get into full spectrum and understanding that. And by the way, so I want to talk about your expansion into products, but first we'll touch on what you entered the market with, which was very popular and still is today. But, so you sent me a nice little care package. I've only gotten to one product thus far, which is the High Feel You. Fucking love it. Like, the fact that you've got those other minor cannabinoids in there, this is, I think we're doing a disservice to the consumers in general if we're not talking about entourage effect and understanding what these minor cannabinoids do. Like, from the get-go, when I started with Ample, we were worked very closely with a lot of the nurse practitioners and the clinics and understand. So right out of the gate for me, transitioning from legacy to legal, I started to learn. I didn't know anything about minor cannabinoids and the entourage effect and all of this. I had no idea. But over the course of 2 years, I went to school, right? And learning this, that's what I started to source and look for these flowers. And there wasn't a lot, right? And then over time, market demand started to grow a little bit, and you start to see some more products that are one-to-ones and this sort of thing, but also focusing on those minor cannabinoids. Like, is it CGC? There's one that's
CBC.
CBC, maybe it's CBC. There's one that kind of just caught me recently. I haven't had a chance to dig into it. I'm like, here's one that's starting to be talked about and included. Like, and I don't think that we've had enough time, well, or resources, but also interest maybe to study, right? I know that there's a lot that are trying to do something, but it takes capital, right? Let me first start with You Feel You, the first product, your big bang into the market. What was that like? And what I want to know, how many edits hit the floor before you even said, okay, we've got a product that's ready for market?
Yeah, so honestly, so you feel you is our second go around as a CBD brand. The first go around, we were a brand called Field CBD
Mm-hmm.
in the Legacy era, and so we got very experienced in product development, both from formulations, but also from a marketing standpoint and speaking to the consumer from that. And what we did, so in those products, we had oils, we had vapes, we had a roll-on, the same roll-on we have now with just an improved cannabinoid formulation. But what we did back then is we actually worked with just broad spectrum CBD and terpenes to drive forward an experience. And then when we moved over into the regulated space, that's where we layered in the added research in minor cannabinoids. Like, our first product was our Calm Drops, our CBD CBG oil. And that's still a classic 3 years later in the market. We're the best selling CBD CBG oil in Ontario now.
Wow.
Yeah, like, all these products are like, we've been trying to execute this minor cannabinoid CBD vision for about 5 years. So I could even send you like our presentations to LPs when we're trying to find an LP partner from 5 years
Yeah.
ago. And our product lineup doesn't look any like that much different than what we're actually today.
Wow.
I think the only kind of pivots we've made is, instead of going, we were talking about gel caps back then, and then I met the team from Aspire, and then I just thought what they were doing was way just miles ahead of gel caps. So
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity to collaborate with them on the tablets, and then we started branching out into the high value stuff more recently with that vape, and then we've got the balanced pre-rolls as well with the
Pre-rolls.
activated carbon
I've
filter
got them.
tips.
I'm excited to try them. I haven't got there yet. Now, winter's gone. I switched over to vaping because right after Christmas, I got sick, and I'm like, I am not smoking a joint in this cold. There is just no way. So your product came at the right time, buddy. I appreciate it. But what was that like? So, wow. Okay. So you've got you're entering market with a product that is not necessarily well known yet. It's not in high demand yet. You're trying to find an LP, right? So that's one, but then distribution as well. So I could imagine what those conversations were like, where, the vast majority of license holders during that time are super focused on vertical integration. We got to put this out, and we've got to get the highest THC. And, now we're talking pre-rolls versus flower, and now we're going to do this. So that must have been a challenge. But I mean, you've got good distribution. I'd say great. In the category you operate in, you've got great distribution across Canada right now. And I don't want to say regular, but THC focused company, it's hard enough for them to gain distribution. What is that talk of? How does that conversation change with retailers with your company versus a THC dominant or focused company?
So I think a couple things has led us we're 3 years in, and it's like we've got really good distribution now. There was a lot of challenges to get there, but there's also a lot of pros. So like challenges, the first 2 years we worked with an LP that went bankrupt last February. We got our feet cut under us, and we lost north of $500,000 because on product we had sold. And then we started working with Cyrus, saved our business basically at CCC in June. And so since then, just having that number one, consistent supply is a huge thing for wellness. And our distribution has gone between Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario from June when we started working with Cyrus, from 250 stores up to now we're close to 700 between those three provinces. So number one is just consistent supply. Before we would sell out in a week, we'd be out of stock 3 weeks. A lot of these consumers using these products would go to stores and be really upset, because imagine if you went to the pharmacy and your asthma inhaler wasn't available. You'd be like, what do you mean it's not available? Right?
Man. Wow.
So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of rebuilding trust. In terms of pros, I think we're the only, outside of maybe Tanner, the only dedicated CBD brand in terms of our day-to-day, 40 hours a week, is dedicated to CBD and minor cannabinoids. You have a lot of other LPs who want to dip their toe in the pool, and they have an amazing large assortment of THC products, and then they just try to slide in an extra couple wellness products, right?
Right.
But they, at the end of the day, their goal, their survival is always going to be based on the success of their THC products, and so will their conversations. And even for us, with a portfolio of 10, we have to juggle which 2 or 3 products are we focusing on the call when we reach out. So
right.
Imagine the position a lot of these reps are in working for these companies that are they have expectations to sell a CBD product, but then they also have 40 THC products to sell.
I've always
You're
wondered
not going to have the buyer's attention, right?
I've always wondered who, as a rep going in, there's a number of agencies. I won't mention any, but going in, it's okay, who am I representing today, right? Because you've got a territory, and you're going to hit these stores. You're not going to be at them, every single day. So is it a binder on here's what's the product selection you're looking for here, which is really reverse in a way. You still, even in natural health and other areas of business, you still have reps that go out, talk about the products, but generally they're representing one company, be that Vega or whoever it might be. But I mean, that's got to be tough. And then it shifts to a point where these stores know what they want based on, it could be a number of things. They saw something on social or whatever. Now they just go to their distributor, right? And they start making the call. So it's an inbound versus an outbound. But I would like you to, if you could, I've never really broke this down with anyone. So, you talk, losing north of $500,000. That's a lot of money, regardless. We see posted loss of 20 million. Listen, a startup bootstrapped company taking a hit like that, I mean, that could crush you. But also, so with all the, CCAAs, all this stuff happening, companies going bankrupt, for brands such as yourself that do not necessarily produce and process and vertically integrated, your ability to move product is dependent upon that LP of record. And in this case, you're talking about Cyrus, and Cyrus is fucking awesome. We all know this, and we know the loud plug, and we know, right? But walk us through what that's like. Give us a picture of, are you reaching out? Because for a lot of LPs that would be the LP of record, they're not necessarily going to be hyper focused. So as one, you have to have someone that's interested. Yes, I believe in this category. I believe in this company. I believe in this person, right? Because it always comes down to that trust relationship. But then two is, because they have to source, if they're an LP of record for others, they have to source high THC, mid THC, full spectrum. They have to do all of this stuff. Is that more on you as the brand to source and look for who's growing the products, then who's going to process it, and then who's going to package it? Can you walk us through that a little bit, just so the audience understands?
Yeah, supply chain basically. So,
Yeah.
So I have two business partners, Naveed and Antoine, and Naveed specifically. He's the guy behind the scenes that's making this all happen. So he's sourcing all the packaging. We have all our vendors for our minor cannabinoids, our custom terpene blends, our sunflower oil, our packaging. CCC is our LP of record. They're the communication point between basically the provinces and the different distribution channels, and between us, and they facilitate that. We actually take care of all the supply chain in collaboration with CCC and their team, which is like Cyrus has honestly the most phenomenal team. Like, we're so blessed. So that's kind of how it all comes together. So Naveed day to day is like dealing with our vendors, making sure we're managing 10 products, but all 10 of those products might have 10 to 15 components in them, and they all have to land in the warehouse at the right time. And then we have to manage, like there's a lot of logistics that goes into this. And on top of that, it's regulated. It's not like it's all come into our warehouse and we're doing it. So we have to speak with the CCC team and coordinate. It's a lot of communication, and it requires a good team. And I think that kind of loops back to the previous question you had. Having consistent supply is important. A dedicated focus to the category you're speaking on 40 hours a week. And then further to that, communication in teams. I'm biased obviously, but I think I have the best team. Julian and Alex, they've been with us basically from day one. They started in smaller roles, they graduated to larger roles, and they're literally the foundation of our company. And they've been through everything with us through thick and thin for 3 years. All those hard conversations of us losing money and what are we going to do, and going through negotiations to get our products back live, working with Cyrus and all that kind of stuff. They stuck through us with it all, and they're dedicated, and they believe in the products. And honestly, it's just been a grassroots team effort. Honestly, it's also been just a lot of we're all honestly to a point just crazy. I literally drove around. I put about 140,000 kilometers on my Tesla the last 3 years. Wow. I've been up to Thunder Bay multiple times. I've been North Bay, Ottawa, Windsor. I go, as you said, there's challenges with selling wellness. And I found the best way to do it is to meet people face to face and have those conversations, and have, because you can only have a short form conversation over a phone call or an email. Yeah. But if you go out and you meet them, you could sit down with them for an hour, you can get their attention, and you could really go into the nitty gritty. And then further to that, you're already there, so then you can hype the bud tenders up. You can sample them with education samples. You can explain all the nuances of what you do different. Everything we do, in every category, our oils are different. We use sunflower oil, we have custom terpene blends, we have minor cannabinoids. That's a lot of education. Mm-hmm. With the tablets, where we work with the Aspire guys with the Rapid Sense, which I'd love
another
to
Do you only work with size?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it gets confusing. But that Rapid Sense technology is it's insane. It's what wild. They're doing. Yeah. People are gravitating towards it right now, but I don't think once everybody really gets the education behind it, I think it's going to even take off more, because it's just phenomenal.
We're miles away from where this is going to be. And that's where I kind of wanted to pose my next question was, you talked about the struggles, and, it's like a 1% to 3% category, right? When it comes to, when I'm going to stock product in my retail or in my dispensary, but you've seen a lot exit, right? And some due to like you said, supply. They may not be getting the supply. They can't source it. They can't build their product out. Some of it's bad partnerships. Some of it's just, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I still doing this? So you're seeing a withdrawal in some point or some areas for some companies. But you're going further in, and that's where I see, and that's why I love it. I love that you haven't lost that motivation. You're still pounding. You're still going as hard as you can. You're hustling. I mean, this is. I think the true differentiator between someone that operated Legacy and someone that they liked cannabis, maybe they saw an opportunity, they're great at raising capital and made an entrance, but then like a lot of business decisions, they go, yeah, it's not a quick enough turnaround. The risk and reward is completely different than I thought it would be. I'm out. But not you. You've almost doubled down. Now the question is, did you expand your portfolio based on what? Let me just, what was it based on? Was it you saw opportunity, the brand had grown? Like what was that deciding factor?
We're honestly just kind of slowly chipping away at rebuilding the categories we serviced originally. So
right, okay.
we always had oils. We always had vapes. So we just launched our first high value vape. We want to get into, tea-free vapes as well. There's a lot of R&D and product development that goes into that. So that's something we're working on as well. THC free vapes.
THC free. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because everything that's on the market right now that's remotely close to THC free, it's basically, it crystallizes, it crashes out. It doesn't perform well because CBD, it tends to do that at higher concentrations. Okay. So there's like things you can do to combat that, but like the equipment, the R&D is expensive. We know how to do it. We just need to spend a bit more money on the R&D to accomplish it. But yeah, so like that's like we're just slowly rebuilding up the categories that we were already servicing, and at the same time using the latest in innovation to drive some of those ideas forward. Like I mentioned, like we were looking at capsules originally, and then we saw this rapid sense technology. We're like, hey, like this is kind of old news now, right? Like it's like, yeah. So it's like we're always looking to kind of like improve our products. And we also, when we develop products, we come at it with the mindset of like will this be still a product in 2 or 3 or 4 years? And like we're now a portfolio of 10. All of our products perform fairly well. Obviously certain ones perform better than others, but all of them have wide, strong distribution. We don't have any sleepers. The OCS isn't like contacting us saying like, hey, maybe you should exit this product. We have 4 on flow through, but all 4 should be graduating in the next couple months. So we'll actually be the only full wellness portfolio, I think, by summer that's going to be fully generally listed in Ontario.
Dude, that's huge. Like huge. For our audience, that trust me, it's huge, right? A lot understand flow through, but flow through is one of those areas, entrance, but from a GL to death in some cases. But when you're graduating from flow through to GL listings, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like just for the audience, about 11-12% of sales are in flow through. It takes a lot longer to get to the stores, and stores generally want to bring the product in right away to be able to turn it right away to start getting like return on their investment and that velocity of money. So you're basically, when your product's on flow through, and it's really cool. Like there's with certain categories like flower or concentrates, you could dive into that exclusivity and that drop culture. But trust me, nobody is like excited for the newest CBD oil on flow through. You're playing in the kiddie pool. You're playing in the kiddie pool. Right. So like, yeah, so we want to get it. We want to get all our products generally listed, and from there, like then people are, a lot of retailers are a little bit more excited to bring it in because they know they could, again, sometimes these wellness SKUs could take 4, 5, 6 weeks to move. Yeah. So then you add 3 weeks of logistics to get to the store. Now you're talking about 8 weeks from the day you add to the cart to sell the product. That's not really appetizing to retailers.
Well, you're in general category, you're starting to look at, you're borderline now looking at RTVs. Right?
Exactly.
You're getting to the point where they're starting to consider it. They're not necessarily seeing it move, but understanding, with under the wellness banner, it's going to take some more time, which great segue into understanding the challenges, right? So what have you found to be the biggest challenge operating in this industry so far? And then we'll expand into, well, it's because wellness, and then what forms and how you're doing that.
So I mean, yeah, just to ask more about that question. So do you want me to give a more wellness specific answer, or more just
Yeah,
a
I'm just
general new industry answer?
well, I think it's more we've discussed quite a bit. I won't say ad nauseum, but we've discussed quite a bit about the challenges of the industry, right? And I think even those that are just on the fringe of the industry, they understand some of the challenge of there's marketing restriction, this. But when you're looking at an alternative medicine, right? Because ultimately that's what we're trying to drive the conversation towards, right? There's a lot of great doctors, physicians, whoever can prescribe. But then we see announcements about, College of Physicians and Surgeons that no longer recommend, blah, blah, blah. That seems counterintuitive. So I'm curious on what the challenges of being operating from the wellness side of the industry. And then we talk about how do we solve it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for wellness is just proving to more and more stores, which we're slowly chipping away at, and I feel very positive about, that it belongs on the shelves. And it's also just that education. Like sometimes it's also like helping those retailers sell it better as well. So like for example, as we talked about, a lot of like it's not necessarily the best place to sell CBD in terms of the recreational cannabis. It's not a recreational product, so it doesn't really fall into that. So things like, for example, and you don't have to do it to the extent of say the Woods with the CBD shop, but let's take the basic principles of what the Woods are doing. Right, they're inviting a consumer into the store with a call of action. So having a simple sandwich board outside saying, hey, we also carry CBD products.
Right.
I bet if you had CBD signs lighting up on every retail store, there's 1,800 in Ontario. If all of them had a CBD sign, I guarantee you the category is a lot bigger, right? So things like that, having a space in your store, merchandise for wellness. Maybe it's just like a nice little different color counter. You got some plants around there. So it's like when that customer sees that CBD sign and walks into the store, they know where to go. So they're not kind of feeling overwhelmed and hit with stigma because they've now if you get them to that point, you've got somebody not interested in getting high walking into a store built around getting high.
Yeah.
So like you have to, and it goes back to that whole conversation with my mother as well. You have to meet people where they are. And I think that's what the best wellness stores are doing right now is they're understanding that it's not the best place to sell it. And they're building around that and they're adjusting and they're evolving to it. Right. So
right.
I think that's a really important thing to do. And more people, more and more retail chains are noticing and then seeing like their neighbors do it and they're trying to do it and they want to dabble and they're curious and they don't know where to start. And that's where like myself or Julian or Alex on the youth community team, we're here to help, right? Like we'll point you in the right directions. We'll give you like a list of best practices. We'll actually, a lot of, like we have a big portfolio. Not all our products will do well in a store that might not have the right demographic for wellness. So we'll tell you like, hey, don't bring this product in, but bring this product in. For example, the CBN category is by far the largest minor cannabinoid category. So like, I'll often tell like a store that wants to be involved in wellness, let's start there. Let's start, like people are looking for help, encouraging a nighttime routine, to be careful with my wording in terms of not using the word wellness. So that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
Like topicals are such a good place to start because the consumer who's feeling that stigma doesn't have to feel like they're ingesting it, they're not eating it, it's not going into their bloodstream. It's like they're dipping their toes in. They're having a bath with the Stewart Farm bath bomb. They're using our feel stick and just feeling the localized effects of cannabis before and getting comfortable before they experiment on ingestion or maybe they just stay there and that's okay too.
How do we jump the retailer to educate the consumer? Because I think that's one of the things that we've looked at for so long is right now the onus is a little bit, you're talking about, CBD neon signs and whatnot, which is great. So I'm going to grab the attention. I'm going to bring them in. And again, a location that's predominantly serving, THC, but what can be done so that brands such as yourself, like, does it have to be at the government level? Does it what level does it need to be? Or what regulations need to change in order to truly educate the consumer? Because there's a lot of consumers that they know, CBD, they're hearing it a lot now. Great. But to take that interest to actually dig in where they're like, I need to go purchase it. They end up at a typical health food store, which has this, CBD washed product, which is not CBD. How do we, because understanding where to get it is one thing, understanding the differences between CB2, CBD, CBN, CBG, and what is hemp seed derived oils versus full spectrum oils or whatever they might be, whatever products. How do you engage that, and what needs to change potentially in order to get us there?
So I'm going to have an unpopular opinion here, but I'm against the change for regulation because I think wellness is such a huge, as you mentioned, cart size and a revenue driver for these stores that choose to adapt. And I think that's what we need to do as an industry is we need to realize that there needs to be some adaptation for us to grow this category. Because if the rules do change, that means that revenue opportunity for the retailers that are investing in it are going to lose that. And that's like so I would rather our industry adapt around that. But in terms of, obviously there's challenges with talking about wellness and medical. So I'm not sure if you chatted with the team at Apothecare, Anusha, Ajay,
No, I haven't
the
yet.
insult.
Yeah.
So there's
Jazz actually, I talked to Jazz last night and he was talking, he's like, you got to talk to Apothecare. And I'm like,
absolutely.
I understand their model. I need to connect with them. So I'll connect with you.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's an area that we need to focus on because what they're doing is incredible.
Yeah, so basically what they're allowing for retail stores that, want that level of comfort of not having to talk about wellness, when a wellness consumer comes in, they can be connected for an appointment with Apothecare. These are pharmacists that are experienced in cannabis. They'll look at all your medical history. They'll look at if you have any drug interactions, because there are drug interactions. Everybody says like, "Oh, CBD safe, CBG safe," but no, there's interactions, and you should look into it before you take the product. So they help with that. They'll even recommend products at that dispensary, and then you'll keep your consumer, but you'll also have that trust of that pharmacist consultation in the process. And I think that kind of goes to what I'm talking about is, as an industry, we need to adapt. And that's what Apothecare is doing. They're realizing, hey, this is a pain point that we need to solve. Here's a solution, right? And so, I'm a big fan of, I don't think things need to change. I think as an industry, we need to adapt and change to it. And we are, honestly. I think we're seeing it.
Well, I can't remember if it was you or Tyler Mosher or it might have been Shane Weeb that I was talking to, and they were big on that as well. They're like, listen, if there's, I don't want to say deregulation, but current structure, if that opened up and now all of a sudden health stores, I don't know, you look at the States again and it's everywhere, right? And it's hemp derived, it's okay, but what happens, right? Because in this current state, especially with an Apothecare, that kind of is solving the model of what the I would say the pros of let's get it to the pharmacy, distribute from the pharmacy, not OTC necessarily, but at least we do it that way, where now you're meeting with pharmacists or clinicians, whoever it might be, and they're directing you to essentially a pharmacy, which is a dispensary, that they know where these products are. But I think the point was raised about if this opens, now you're going to see even more of those hemp seed derived oils, and everything is going to be, because I remember the breakout of CBD. Everyone's talking CBD cornflakes, CBD this, CBD that, right? And there was some concern where, but because these products aren't always tested. Like from a branding perspective, I could just stick it on. It might not have anything and just ride until someone calls me on my bullshit. Right. And I think that's a serious concern. How do you speak to that? You kind of just did, but I mean, what are your concerns when you've got, the coalitions and such? And it's funny because I have Shane Morris coming on a little bit later to talk about the new regs and the changes. And they run the healthcare coalition. I forget exactly what it's called, Cannabis Health Coalition. But anyways.
Yeah, so to my understanding, I've seen what has been put forward loosely on that paper, and it's basically allowing CBD isolate specifically, only that one input to exit the supply chain of a licensed producer to be put into other finished goods. And so that's, you're not going to get quality products there. So I mean, it's going to create a lot of exposure to CBD. I think it would do well, and those products will sell well, and it might help with the the normalization of CBD in the Canadian market. But I think all the good stuff's still going to be in the regulated dispensaries. Like
Yeah.
they're only doing CBD isolate, and maybe you can ask Shane about this, but I don't believe they're doing anything on CBG, on CBN, on CBC.
Mm.
We're actually we're the only broad spectrum CBD company right now in Canada, so we're THC free by nature. But how we're getting there is we're not isolating CBD; we're remediating THC out. I
Mm.
don't think we're actually part of that legislation, even though we're THC free. It's I think it's good. At any time we can grow the industry, I think it's good, and I totally support what they're doing. But I still think we're a long way from having all the good stuff available in regular stores, and that's where I think we still need to adapt as a recreational cannabis industry and see this opportunity, and I think we are.
Yeah. We just need to hold on. It's
Yeah,
still holding on, right?
100%.
And looking
Yeah.
for that change. Sam, if you could change one thing, I mean, first let me ask you. So regs just changed a little bit, right? Anything in there that got you excited?
Not specifically to us, but I mean, I'm excited for the industry. Like, there's some cool stuff in there for sure.
There's some movement.
I think, yeah, there's movement exactly. I think I'm really excited for the change with the micros. They're going to be able to put a lot more output out. That's I think it's like almost 4 times as much. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So that's massive right there. I think being able to see flower in the packaging is going to be game changing. I think that also helps to an extent combat the illicit market, because that's the experience a lot of those consumers have when they go into these illicit stores, is they get to stimulate their senses before they buy the product.
Yeah.
And I mean, nobody really has smell jars anymore in retail stores, so that's kind of gone. But having a window to just at least see the bud, if you're paying a premium price,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a huge change.
When I saw that, I'm just thinking from a consumer point of view, but also then the opposite, which is the marketing side. And a lot of this product is back, right? It's in the back room. And, oh, can I see this one? Can I see this one? And then I just see bud tenders going back and forth, zipping back and forth. And I think over time, that's going to eliminate some of these products and brands potentially that really maybe shouldn't be in the market to begin with. But I see a busy bud tender for sure.
Also, it could change how stores are set up to an extent, because like you have I think a really good example of a store that like I'm trying to think. I know all the VIP cannabis stores. They're mainly in small towns. They have all the product on display.
I love VIP cannabis. We have one here in my hometown. I'm like, it's nothing fancy. It's clean. It's got the products on display. Wish the font was bigger because I can't read the damn things half the time. But
also like Cannabis Hut. They're another 10 stores as well. They have everything on display. So I think their business models are built out for success with that. But yeah, like definitely stores that don't have much and they just have counters and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a challenge, and I know we've seen a lot of shrinkage in terms of the successful dispensary model, in terms of nothing on display, screens, like quick service, small square footage. We might see some kind of expansion again now, because consumers are going to want to see the product now that they can see the product. And it's like you said, it's going to be a lot on the bud tenders to run back and forth and be like this one, and then I don't like that one. Okay, now this one.
It's like trying clothes on. Bring me 3 sizes in all of those, right? The one that I got excited about was the allowance of QR codes. I think that this opens up. I mean, again, ample days we couldn't have. So if you were running our software, you could not put your inventory tag on because it had a QR code on it. But where I see this, especially in the category that you operate in, is if you have a complementary THC type product, you now have a QR code that you can scan that opens you up to literally anything. It could be AR, it could be COAs, it could be interaction on a website, learn about true CBD. And I think that's going to be the key if CBD isolate is deregulated, where, now you're going to be combating what is true full spectrum, broad range versus CBD isolate. But I see it as an opportunity that you'll be able to educate, even if it's, I just see a lot of spin-off, right? Imagine you and I are, getting together, share a pre-roll. I'm like, wow, I really like that. You've got the doob tube still handy. I'm never going to remember it off the top of my head, but I could scan it. Maybe there's a technology that comes that lets you store that. But the biggest one I get excited about is the education factor. I think that it opens up a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, or even the behind the scenes. Like I
Oh
know,
yeah.
like I think Glacial Gold, like they're doing a really good job of this. They actually you can I believe, and I don't want to say it, and then like everybody goes to their website and it's not there. So I apologize in advance, but I believe you can actually virtually visit their facility on their website.
I'll have to check that out. I just had Emma on last week. Her episode actually drops tomorrow. But we didn't talk about that. I'm gonna have to check it out
Yeah,
now.
if it's you asked me at the beginning if there's anything to cut out, so maybe let's check that out. And if it's not there, just scrap
You
that
just
whole
drove. No,
segment.
we'll leave it. You just drove a ton of traffic to Next Leaf, and we'll send Emma the bill. That's awesome. Well, so as we're talking about change and reform, leave us with some imparting wisdom on what needs to still change. How do we come together? Like what one topic, one item of information that you can share with us? What is that parting wisdom potentially?
So I'm going to step out of the wellness bubble here a bit, and I'm going to speak more about something that I've seen happening, just developing over the last week. We have the RCCO working so hard, Zara and the team over there, in terms of putting some pressure on the government to enforce rules on the illicit dispensaries. That takes time. That's a long process. What speeds it up is a grassroots effort. And Clifford from Spirit Leaflet in Italy, he's been championing this. He's been getting out there. He's been, really, really pushing things forward. And Jazz is now collaborating with him. And then a bunch of retailers are coming together. I think Cyrus actually donated $5,000. We just donated $500. So there's fundraising efforts to actually create a grassroots PR campaign. And going back to the Legacy 420 English Bay, we had thousands and thousands of people there making a statement. And I think we've gotten away from that as an industry. And that's what we need to get back to, is we need to get back to organizing from a grassroots level, because it's not just enough to just have people, pushing things on the government side, on the regulatory. Like I know the C3 was doing things, and then there's RCCO doing things. These people are doing good work, but you need the grassroots to push that and make that an issue. Otherwise, it doesn't go anywhere. So, so I just want to shout out the work that they're doing. I want to get involved in it as well myself, and I encourage any retailers to reach out to even brands. Reach out to Clifford, reach out to Jazz, to Zara, to myself. We're going to be starting to actually create some grassroots pressure that's going to really accompany what all the other RCCO, the C3, all those small groups are doing on the regulatory side to push things forward. I guess to conclude that, let's get a grassroots movement going for this industry.
Jazz and I were talking about that last night, and I've seen what's going on, and I said, I'm here to support. Like obviously we're going to do everything we can with our audience and make sure that people are aware. Like and I think that they need to understand the causation or what's going on and why. Because again, we're legalized, so no, the marches aren't happening. Like this stuff isn't really going on anymore because. Why? I don't know. But the problem is there's so many challenges, especially in Ontario, where, certain limitations have just not been lifted yet. So you count us in, man. We're in and we'll support as much as we can. And we've seen a ton coming in, but we need, again, it's grassroots. Yeah. So you need as many involved, as many aware. So
we need to, exactly. Brands, LPs, retailers, store managers, reps, blood tenders. We need that movement all to come together. We're capable of doing it. We're all a kind having a party. Let's do the same thing at City Hall. You know what I mean?
Why not?
That's what we need to do.
Exactly. Sam, man, thanks for joining Legacies. Appreciate you. I love everything you're doing with You Feel You and beyond. But thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks for everything you're doing with Legacies, because the industry needs it.
I appreciate it.
Hey everyone, if you're like me, you get overwhelmed by the product selection in this crazy cannabis market. Every 2 weeks, we drop a digital flyer with a curated list or featured products that you'll want to try. Subscribe to our digital flyer at thehighflyer.ca, and you can also check out our historical flyers to see the products that we featured with a selection that I approve of, and Wes certainly does. Check it out at thehighflyer.ca.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Dr. You screwed me up here, Shane. You put Dr. Shane Morris in there, and I remember the rivalry and everything going on with your brother. Sometimes I'll call you doctor, and sometimes I won't. But welcome back to Legacies, man.
I did that on purpose. Great to be back.
Trying to fuck with me.
Oh,
and
I'm a shit stir. I'm a shit stir.
Yeah, I know this. But also, happy belated St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, 2 days ago, I'm a little bit more sober now, so that's good. That's certainly, getting a bit old down to the toots to be out doing what I used to do on St. Patrick's Day. But it's always a good time here.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, listen, you reached out. It's a topic we want to been talking about. We've got some regs change. We got a little bit of reform happening, and you know a little bit about regulations and how that gets rolled out. And so we thought, let's just break it down. Now, I do want to put a small caveat on. Let's focus on the ones that are really going to move the needle potentially. There's some in there that I'm like, who gives a shit, right? But other ones I'm like, woo, game changer potentially. Why don't we first start by what are some of the reg changes that you've seen that you see as the greatest opportunity potentially for those that are operating in this crazy industry?
Yeah, so straight up, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't stay at Holiday Inn last night.
This is not legal advice.
This is not legal advice. But we did have a great webinar recently with Trina Fraser and Harrison and the Deepak in relation to this issue. So we got lots of feedback, lots of people are on that. So a lot of interest in it. To answer your questions, at a high level, this is a mix of what I call cleanup regs and some reduction in burden and red tape, and then some really interesting changes from a marketing perspective, from an operation QA perspective, and I would say the big winners here are micro growers and micro processors, micro cultivation.
Sure.
So at a high level, that's the big one. They're the takeaways. Very excited. Let's break that down a little bit. Quite excited about, like I said, the micros. You're going, you're nearly quadrupling in some cases the limits that are occurring. So it's kind of you're going in micro cultivation. You're going from a 200 meter squared canopy to 4 times that, 800.
Yeah, 800. Yeah, so no more. I remember when they launched the regs and there was the hockey or the ice rink, and I'm like, only in fucking Canada.
Yeah. So funny story. Trina had figured out how much of the ice rink now is. So I'm not a hockey person. I play real sport like hurling.
Oh my god! Ouch.
It's okay. It's look it up. It's fastest ball game in the world. Okay. And very little protection. So she had it figured out, but it's basically going 4x the size. So that's really a big win. Well, I would argue even the bigger winner is microprocessing. You're going from 600 kg limit of dried cannabis equivalency to 2,400.
That's huge.
Yeah, so that's huge. Very exciting on the dried equivalency side. So that's actually a business side. If you do the back of envelope math, it's quite interesting how many vapes you can get out the door on that, or how many extract products you can get out the door on that, depending on the equivalent.
And some of these microprocessors, they have the space, they just couldn't operate it, and it wasn't licensed. So, expansion, obviously going through the process, right? You have to get approved. And
actually, the reverse is also happening. There's some processing standard processing licenses that will want to reduce down to a microprocessor because the fees are much more reduced, hugely reduced. So Health Canada has already, I think, put out a special form and a request to be able to do that as quick as possible. So that's really interesting. So I think you're seeing a bit of a realignment, and the micro cultivation and microprocessors, if you thought they were doing well in relation to licenses as they've been coming through, they're by far the most licenses now, but I think you're going to see them really become a cornerstone of this industry now in the value chain.
Yeah. Do you feel that, like, when the regs rolled out for micro allowance, were people choosing that even though they felt they could operate at standard just based on the licensing fees? And like, I never really got into that discussion with a lot of people, right? Like, why micro? Like, I know that there was a carve out there where they felt, and I don't want to say this is why Health Canada did it, but those that were operating legacy wanted to transition in. It was a little bit easier adjustment potentially, but
yeah, and there's quite a bit of a difference on burden from microcultivation to microprocessing. So, let's talk about microcultivation. Certainly, I think it was seen as a way to get into the system and to explore the system, to be able to see what you can do. Certainly, I think there was a protection there where you certainly cannot go straight to market. That was, I think, still is a bit of a key issue, but you'd obviously be feeding in through someone else's standard processing license. So that's an interesting model. As a result, I think from Health Canada's perspective, all things were de-risked for them. So the quality standard issues were going to be de-risked because a standard processing license, buying a micro cultivation product will have to kind of force on their standards onto that system. But the flip side of it, you didn't actually have to have all the requirements that a standard license would have from a QA perspective and a release perspective. So it's kind of interesting on that front.
What about the red tape reduction though? Like we've talked about it. The industry's wanted it. What areas are the most crucial or important that people should be paying attention to?
Well, I think what you're probably seeing is certainly there's the personal and physical security measures are interesting perspective. It's no longer required to have security cleared personnel on site when activities with cannabis are being conducted, which is great.
I mean, the fences, the cameras, the barbed wire, all that is
a lot of all that. Like also the security clear person. I don't know if you remember the day, or you probably do very well, where you had to have a security clear person in a room
every time.
A room. So there used to be like a security clear person needs to take a leak. Everybody out of the room. Leave the cannabis out. If you're hand trimming or if you're trimming or doing whatever with cannabis, everything had to down tools and follow the security clear personnel. Then they changed that to, okay, you don't need it in the room, you need it on site. Now they've removed that on site element, right? So, which is important because those clearances cost approximately about $2,000 per person. Then also you've got, the removal of intrusion detection requirements for the site perimeter. But visual recordings are still required. But that that would be a huge piece, and that's for standard class licenses and sale for medical purpose licenses and CDLs. No requirement for continuous visual recordings, which is, if you think about it, it's only when the camera identifies movement, then you can record it. That's good. The removal of room within room storage requirements, again, another reduction in burden, I would argue. And also this, from your background, this nightmare was the recording and retaining the list of individuals entering and exit storage areas. So this was the swipe in, swipe out nightmare that used to be both costly to set up, but also it used to be a real one that Health Canada used to focus on just to kind of nab you on it, right? So it's like who scanned in, who scanned out, and trying to capture that and maintain it was a real pain.
Well, God forbid you have a tour, and you've got rookies in there. Even myself, did I scan that? I can't remember. Did I scan here? Do I scan this door? Do I need to scan this door? And sometimes they're active, sometimes they weren't. It was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare, and it was like, I in my opinion, it was probably overkill at the time, right? But now it's great to see. We're only 5 years in, and we've had these reductions. The annoying thing is that a lot of these amendments were proposed back in 2020, right? So we were looking at doing these changes. The first consultation on these, what we like to call cleanup changes, because it's perfectly normal to put in a regulatory system and then a couple of years later, ask everyone what's happening, what's working, what's not working well, what you want to change. And that kind of first consult happened in December 2020. So none of these are new. So then there was
it's no surprise. I mean, the government moves at glacial speed, right?
Actually, that's where I argue it should be a surprise because unlike the rest of the vast majority of government regulatory programs, cannabis pays a 2.3% regulatory fee on every gram of cannabis sold. And that's a regulatory fee. And if you look at what that's supposed to do, it's supposed to go into, supporting regulatory changes and policy changes and the whole So why the hell this took nearly, the guts of 4.5 years?
They're just building the coffer.
Yeah, I
do we have
suppose.
enough money? Do we have enough staff? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a real challenge. Um, yeah, so you're seeing some burden reductions. And again, some other key areas such as the unlimited amount of alternative QAPs. That's going to be interesting. I think you're looking at the other one that used to be a pain was the off-site antimicrobial treatment. So when you send something off to be remediated in some way or shape or form, you have to send somebody with it, or someone there had to have security clearance, but now that's not required if it's coming straight back. So I think it's a hodgepodge of small minor-ish areas, but some of them are actually, when it all adds up together, it can be significant. Another great one is, hey, removal of 1 gram limit on pre-rolls. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you're going to get this massive.
Finally, Josh is sitting in the background going, "Yes, we finally have a market for our 20-gram pre-roll."
Oh, that's it. That's exactly it, right? You can go up to the limit of possession, so it could be 30 grams, right?
Yeah.
So, there's going to be some novelty.
Sure, and some of them need it. Some brands have the opportunity and the ability to do it. So why not put out a novel? I don't want to say they're all novelty. I mean, there's some that are in your face, and it's like, okay, they're great products, but others, why not? You've got to pull every lever you can in this industry.
Absolutely. I remember one of my team made I'll send you the picture, this huge gummy. It only had 10
it wasn't in the shape of a bear or anything. I hope.
No, it was exactly the same as the gummies we were making.
Yeah.
But they 3D printed up one mold on it, and it was just like, oh guys, this is brilliant. If you could put it in a case and put it on because it's full of sugar, it's going to sit
a family
there.
share pack.
Well, I think it would have been great in retail setting because people would have gone in and see this massive gummy.
Yeah. Well, look at, Subway and Pizza, they've all done this at some point for some occasion, right? There was the big catering sub that was like 10 feet long, and Pizza's done it draws attention. And if you can create a campaign around it, why not? Like, I'm really interested to see who'll be the first brand. Any bets?
Yeah. And then, moving into more of the packaging and labeling side of things, it's not so much for the burden reduction as is, I think it loosens things up a little bit, not hugely. I think you're looking at, small change, well, some big changes such as the windows in dried cannabis products. So I think we see it in the US. There are suppliers, and I actually saw on LinkedIn. I don't know who it was, but someone had taken the initiative, read the regs back last year, the proposed regs, figured that it was going to happen, and took the risk and ordered the windows.
Yeah, I saw that too. I forget who it was though.
I don't know. I feel terrible.
I'll see if I can find it, and I'll put a picture up on it when I get to
editing. And that is for sure it was going to happen. There's a lot of this was for sure is going to happen.
You and I chatted about this before I hit record, which was I see this as, at least for the beginning anyways, it'll be, can I see this bag? Can I see this bag? Can I see it? So bud tenders run off their feet. And I actually had Sam on from You Feel You ahead of you, and I was joking about that. But you brought up a great point, which is, at least it's there. You can see other products and other packages outside of this industry. And for those that have stock available, great. But the one thing I think, and it should happen, is it's going to weed out, pun intended, those products and those brands that they're just brands. They're sourcing, so it's not just brands in all cases, but they're sourcing whatever and trying to sell it as premium, only to lose that customer once the bag is opened, right?
So, yeah, exactly. No, I agree. I think it's going to the rubber is going to meet the road, and Canadians are notoriously nice, and but some of them do. If you sell them a premium product and they open the bag and it's not, they do come back with the
Oh
product.
yeah, they do.
So there's.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this will help reduce returns,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, you can inspect the bag before you purchase
Yeah.
it. So that's to some degree that's going to be helpful. I think it's going to push everyone to that way, especially on the premium to mid level, or
Hmm.
super premium mid level. I think everyone's going to go there. I think you'll see this be driven all the way down into the value market as well, right? So once people use up, obviously there's a bunch of people who bought a bunch of bags probably just before Chinese New Year, right? So this and they have inventory that they want to get through, right? So and some of that can be very expensive. Like some of these bags are, depending on the size, can
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what. I mean, I caught some posts just recently about leading up to this whole tariff talk and the trade war and what's going on. There was, oh, it's not going to affect the Canadian cannabis industry, and I'm sitting there going, what? Like,
yeah, unfortunately.
70% of the brands I know of source their packaging materials from the US. So it's going to affect it. And then just as of recent, it's like, yeah, there's, what was now a 10-cent bag is now 12 cents. And some are like, oh, boo-hoo. I'm like, oh, that's still 20% on already razor thin margins.
Yeah, no, I've been in negotiations to try to get 2 cents off stuff on an ongoing basis, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge piece, right? So yeah, hopefully a lot of this can, well, we'll see, because just the U.S. side is heating up for sure, and it's the focus of attention. But also the Chinese side is heating up, and it's going to be quite interesting to see what tariffs there are applied, because when you're at a certain level, you're buying pretty much directly from China, right? Like at this point. So all the big guys, they've got, if they're doing their job right, they've already got suppliers direct into mainland China, or Asia anyway, and they've done all their due diligence looking at the production facilities, making sure it's not, no slave labor, no human rights issues, that it's a safe work environment. Like I remember having to audit all of these sources of hardware for vapes, packaging, you name it, right? Once you get to a certain scale, plus you always try to have it inspected before it leaves, because if you have 3 million vape carts turning up on your door and there's a problem,
Yeah, what are you going to do with them?
it's already here, right? So you want to have your independent auditors independently assess, the shipment before it leaves China or wherever it leaves. So that's a massive scale.
Yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, but yeah, it's going to be a real challenging time. It's like cannabis can't get a break. It's it's tight left, right, and center every place. So
Yeah, and fast forward 20 years, we'll be looking back, hopefully laughing at all the the challenges of the early days. But so what else do we got? We've got the one I get really excited about, and you know this from my days in Ample, where I just threw my hands up in frustration, was the QR codes, right?
yeah,
What the fuck harm is a QR code? Now I get it, the downstream effect of what are people doing with them. But
well,
QR codes to me is a massive game changer.
yeah, it is. So why they were actually banned in 2018 was because we had them.
They're all over, yeah, all
Well,
inventory.
on the medical side, they were always there, right?
Yeah.
So when prior to the new regs, right? So people forget QR codes were a thing back then, and there was I can tell you exactly when this happened. There was an article in a Saturday edition of the Globe and Mail where somebody in Toronto was talking about a meeting of all these marketing people that they were going to do all these advanced marketing things, QR codes,
Yeah.
and augmented
Augmented
reality.
reality.
Yeah. And Hell kind of read it, went, nope, that's not going to happen. And it came down like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
And I know this for a fact because I was talking to the folks here in Ottawa. They said when that story came out, and it made the bureaucrats and the regulators realize what's possible, they just shut everything down.
And I get it in a new fledgling industry like cannabis, why they would. Like, I mean, QR, because then you got to get into regulating what is the use of the QR if you allowed it, right?
Well,
So
now
give
they're
it some time. Let the cake bake a little while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you also have to remember back then it was the Wild West on advertising. It was there was TIFF, there was billboards in Toronto, there was radio stations. It was
I
like
still remember so the Ample offices were in the beaches, and there was a billboard right there on Lakeshore, and Weed Maps took it over. And I saw it. I'm like, I think that was 2018, maybe 19.
just
And I saw it. I'm
before.
like, holy shit, they've got balls. Like, and then of course their Super Bowl commercials and broccoli instead of cannabis. Like, it's crazy days.
It was crazy days. So, put in context, that's why the QR code, and like the QR code's great now. I think you're going to be able to go right back into the, link it to COAs, link it to proper traceability to actual production areas, to people. I think the key issue is people. So, way back early 2000s, I did the first DNA traceability of meat in Canada.
Okay.
And we were working with high-end pork producers in PI, and they had actually, DNA traceback. Loblaws then bought it actually, and then they linked it all. They linked it all together with the DNA traceback with the QR code. And now, if you can, the high-end chicken, high-end, pork, high-end beef, you can actually, go and meet the farmer. From the packaging, from the high-end Loblaws product, right? You can just scan it, boom, you get a little video, it's hi, we're the family. Like, this is the norm in Europe as well, right? Like, in Ireland, I can, basically just click a QR code and I get a tour of the farm where the beef was raised or where the canola was grown. It's normal.
It seems like, are there any restrictions on the QR usage? I didn't read that.
Yeah, my understanding is it defaults back to you can't advertise, you can't put there like a bunch of kids, can't have a QR coded video of a bunch of kids having a great time,
right.
Lifestyle,
so still avoiding lifestyle inducement, protect the children, all of that sort of thing. But I mean, and then you get into age gating as well. But I just see it as a great COA's awesome. I mean, that's a very small sect, I think, of the consumer industry when it comes to like what was the COA. But when you get into the marketing side and being able, because brands, they struggle to tell their story, right? They've got Meta. Oh, great. We've got some Instagram. And I mean, honestly, I've said this and I've been hard on it for a long time, is that if you're a brand and you're just posting, now there is an audience for it, don't get me wrong. I think it's a smaller audience when you're thinking of the grand scheme of opportunity. But, you're posting nug shots. Like Kellogg's doesn't post single cornflakes. Like they don't post... beer companies don't post a picture of their hop. Now, I get it. Yes, some have, right? But
some do horses.
You're right. So I guess the question is, like, when you start thinking you can do meet who's behind the brand? I mean, this is a service opportunity, I think, as well.
You've always been able to do people and the story of the company. We were doing it way back, and I've always pushed the marketers to talk about the people, right? Because one thing I learned when we were in food, we were doing some advertising of Canadian products across the world in different markets, and we'd done an internal mock-up, and it was like salmon, and it was and they said, guys, there's no people in this. Right. You like the occasion is for a meal. The occasion is whatever whatever you want to design about. People connect with people. They don't connect with a piece of meat on its plate, right?
Yeah. So that's Red Bull's philosophy. I mean, that's, you go through all of. Now I get it.
Lifestyle, it's a bit different.
A little bit with lifestyle, and you'd have to walk that line very carefully. But you're right. It's
people within the industry. Like, so for example, you can advertise about like who's your growers, like where you come from, where's the site like, there's
choosing cultivars, pheno hunting. I mean, there's so much that people can geek out on. I think it really just comes down to the brand and their opportunity. What do they want to capitalize on? What other?
Well, at the end of the day, it's probably cheaper to pay a data fee. So it's
And they're happening full roll. Nothing in there obviously about that, right?
no,
And
no, no. There
I
wouldn't
think
be. That's not the
no,
point
that's
for it.
it's not. We're not going to see it there, and I think that's more so the provincial level. But what other reform
Multi packs.
multi packs? Oh yes,
Multi packs.
break this one down. Listen, that language is so fucking confusing, Shane. For
It
for
is.
those that are not deeply embedded in the industry, even I read it and I'm like, what the hell are they saying? Like I get it, but why does it have to be worded so convoluted?
Uh, well, first of all, you have to understand the people who draft, right? So,
Yeah, there's Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
well, yeah, well, I'm not joking, but there's always two of them.
Right.
So drafters in government, like I worked in government for a long time, we're always like sitting at the table with the drafters, and like they're always the odd ones sometimes, like because there's always two. There's a draft, and they go around in pairs. They pair for life. There's a French and English, and they work together all the time. Like they literally go all the meetings all the time because the legal drafting is very, very delicate, I would say, and very
Okay.
sophisticated. And there's precedents, and it's a whole skill set. And but it's they go around in pairs. There's always if you can't get them both at a
Attached
meeting,
at the hip.
absolutely, absolutely. So, like, let's stand back and talk about this. So, the multi packs are designed in a way at a high level to be literally a multi pack, not a variety pack at this point. So I think some people might get disappointed and say, "Oh well, now I can put in a whole bunch of different different SKUs or something." And no, that's not going to happen, right? So what you actually have to do is cannabis products other than seeds and plants can now be sold in multi packs, and it gets a little complicated because they can only include one class of products. So you can do dried cannabis pre-rolls, or you can do an infused pre-roll extract, but you couldn't put a pre-roll, and an infused pre-roll together because they're different classes.
Yep.
And then all the immediate. So how it works is there's an immediate container. Here, I'll just take one of these. There's an immediate container, for example, and you're allowed up to the limit on that. So say in this particular case, these are gummies, you're allowed to put 10 milligrams of THC in this. Okay. But then you're allowed to put those together in a multi-pack, right?
So you could do 10, 10, 10, and 10, as long as it's not the immediate container. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, let's do extracts. It's better. Yes,
Okay.
that's essentially what you can do. So, so if this was a pre-roll container, you could put pre-rolls in there. So if you could actually technically do 1 gram pre-rolls, and you're going to stick with the current limit, right? But take 2 grams, right? You're going to go above the current limit. You're going to do 2 gram pre-rolls, and you're going to put 15 of those into a pack. But it must be subject to the same properties of each unit of pre-roll, right? So, except for flavor and color. So this is going to get really interesting. So it's a little complicated. And then, of course, it depends, and not to get too geeky on this, it depends then on when you put together these packs. There's each pack has to have the required labeling. That doesn't change, right? So unfortunately, there's no real give on that. Not with but the wrap around the pack or the box that's it's in can be have less labeling on it than each of these. So it's funny because if you had a beverage with not more than 3% THC, that dried equivalency for 30 grams would be like 17 kilos of product. And then if you divide that into, if you had like 334 mils, which say grams, it's the same, right? Density. You could get actually 51. You could actually have a multi-pack of 51 CBD drinks, right?
Wow.
Now that's never going to happen, but I think it was designed really. Look at multi-pack as a 2-4. That's what,
Yeah.
whether it's pre-rolls, whether it's edibles, that's what it's designed for with a limit on it, right? So, but you can't have, and it's going to be interesting, right? Because if the properties that are saying, well, if you have dried cannabis and you've like packs, you had, three 10-gram packs, okay, just for argument's sake, because that goes up to 30 grams. So each of those will have to be the same THC. And with dried cannabis, that essentially means it's from the same lot.
Right.
So you can't be like trying to find older lots and putting them into, because once the THCs are out of sync, that means you can't put them together in a multi-pack. I don't know. It's quite difficult to explain, but I can send you something that maybe.
Yeah. Obviously, the brands are going to dig into this and understand it, and I think we'll start to see it. I think at least personally, I look at it as it was satisfying the edible and the beverage side, right?
Yeah, I think the real push was for the 2-4 pack of beverages, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what a case of craft cost anymore, but I could just imagine what's a case of sheesh going to cost now. I got to take a loan out.
Yeah, well, that too, right? But that's a scale issue, and I think so. It's unfortunately there's no pick and mix available in it's every unit within the multi pack needs to be a clone of the next unit in the multi pack, essentially, with the exception of flavor and color. So
it's a bit of move. What any other big changes that you see as a big opportunity, or because I do want to know what didn't change that should have changed and was the biggest disappointment?
Well, there's a lot that. So to be fair to Health Canada, they couldn't change a lot of the stuff that we want to change because that's changing in the Act. Okay, so to remind people, the Act is the overall piece of legislation. The regulations is the devil is in the detail, right? So you're bound by the Act in relation to what you can do in the regs, right? So if we wanted to, like, the big changes in relation to advertising and that's all found in the Act essentially, right? So and as we all know, we're still waiting for the review of the Act to be kind of actioned. We have a report on and review, but the government hasn't done anything yet on it. So so that's the disappointment. But to be fair, the tools here, because what would normally happen when a review with an amendments to the Act is you'd make changes to the Act, and then there would be consequential amendments in the regulation. So it happens.
It's a big job. I mean, that takes quite a significant amount of effort to do, but it's not like they haven't been collecting those fees and growing the teams out.
Yeah, and I'd also remind you that they were able to pull together entire legislation from 2016 to 2018.
Wow.
So and that when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're seeing some of the effects of that as well, right? But we have an industry.
Case in point is CBD deregulation, right?
Yeah,
that was promised in the consultation prior to Cannabis Act coming into force, 2016, and they just dragged their feet along with it.
Is there any movement on that before we?
What's
going on?
We got just last week, I think, the Health Canada released another consultation.
I saw that they released that, and I'm like, why? Like, are they just trying to every time I see this, Shane, I just go, taxpayer dollars, like every fucking time.
They're punting the ball to down the court, or
next admin has to handle it somehow.
Yeah, I don't know what the hockey equivalent is, that they're ragging the puck. I don't know. But it's
they've iced the puck. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's very easy for a minister prior to election to say, look, we're moving on it. We have a consultation out.
Right.
That's
but
what
this is what, how many times now? This was fourth, fifth?
I want to say this is the fourth.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, listen,
to be honest, the questions they're asking, everyone's answered already before.
There's not new information coming to the table.
No, there isn't. Um, so this is pure kind of, yeah, we've got to be looking like we're doing something, because I've done a bit of digging with ATIPs and the likes, and there was movement on this in 2022. Then it disappeared. The person moved on. There was supposed to be movement, and that's what got us moving. 2020, end 2023. Sorry, that's when the movement really. Then it kind of died off post the scientific review, and that's where we got really upset. And so we're going to get dug in here, and that's the Cannabis Health Product Coalition team there. And we just started knocking on doors and making ourselves a pain in the ass, and all of a sudden squeaky wheel gets the oil, and we've got some movement. But classic points was, well, we were going to do something, we were told, we're hiring a team, at the beginning of last summer. Absolutely. And I go, yeah, no, you're not. Like, and then, hey, presto, comes the end of summer, we can't find people to hire the team. I go, yeah, dude, we told you that, like, I worked in 20 years in government. That's not, if you're just
Let me see the Indeed ad for this person you're trying to hire.
Yeah. So then they pulled it together, and we have it in writing that it was supposed to be at the end of fall, which in Canada is like December 21st, and of course that didn't happen. So, and then we were told, there's more, it's got more interest internal. I go, well, that's clearly because you haven't done the consultations internally properly. This is I've done lots of these things in my past life, and these things are supposed to be well managed and easily, rolled out. There should be no surprises to anybody if it's been managed correctly. So anyway, they missed the deadline December, but we got it finally, and we were petrified that we wouldn't actually get it before an election, if that's ever going to happen now.
But, we'll see what that. Yeah, we don't have a prime minister right now.
Well,
don't you say he's my prime minister? I didn't vote for him.
I'm not going to go there, because I had the most boring tweet last week on an order in council that he signed something last Friday to saying he did cancel the carbon tax. And I go, no, but that just took off, it went viral, for all the right and wrong reasons you could imagine. So my phone was just nuts last week. I'm the most boring thing in the world, regulatory order in council.
Yeah, I am so over politicians and politics right now. And as important as it is, I'm just what bizarro world are we even living in anymore?
That's a great question.
I mean, globally, Shane, not just Canada. What the fuck is going on?
It's very hard for me to tell my kids that they can change the world anymore, because I'm looking at the world and going, yeah,
my wife says it to me all the time. We got to stand up against this. What are we going to do? And I go, exactly. I said, we've come to this point where, you doom scroll, you do this, it's remote meetings. There's no marches. There's no 60s rise up. It doesn't happen anymore. So you've basically relinquished all power, and they're just doing whatever the hell they want to do.
Well, listen, I'm a big fan of, any kind of government efficiency. So, don't get me wrong. But I heard a great analogy recently, and I think it goes for all politics. And it would help, I think, the polarization. I think that's even a bigger problem, is the polarization of people. Look, you go to a restaurant, Tom, and you don't like everything on their menu, right? But you still go back, right? You still frequent.
If the service was good, I go back. That's me personally, though.
Oh yeah, but exactly, right. So, and there can be off days and on days, but it's a weird world we live in. And but a Doge for Canada and a Doge for cannabis, sign me up. I would do that work. I would do that work voluntarily.
My God, I come in with a fucking sigh. Just start mowing the wheat down.
It's I don't think they'd like to see me coming, but
probably not. And I mean, if with me, they'd go, "Who the fuck is this idiot?" Sure, let him in.
Well, definitely. It was funny because Hal Canada put out some metrics there last week saying, I think how many licenses. There was a LinkedIn thing, how many licenses they had. I think they did 50 last year, like approved 50, and there's 70 in the queue. And according to their own website, if you can go find out how, there's 117 people in just the licensing section of Health Canada.
Wow.
And that's probably out of date. There's probably more.
Jeez.
So they're not even like doing one license a year per person.
Wow.
Yeah. So
like, what is going on? Oh my God. Now you got me frustrated. I don't drink anymore. Well, not really, but I'm gonna go drink. Listen, Shane.
Irish whiskey. That's the only thing.
There you go. There you go. What was I have tried one. It was probably just because it was.
St. Patrick's
Conor McGregor has one, which
is
called Proper or something.
Proper 12. So I like my Irish whiskey a lot. If you're going to go Irish whiskey, Bushmills, Middleton, Redbreast, Green Spot, Yellow Spot, all Red Spot, all amazing whiskeys, right? Not like this that's Canadian rye. Sorry, no offense, but like
yeah, you can't find it on shelves now, anyways.
All you can find is Canadian rye on shelves, because all the American
got a
rye.
trunk full of bootleg American products.
Well, you also have to understand. I'm going to tell you a quick story, Tom. The reason why people go into bars in North America and ask for a Scotch is because of Canadian rye.
Oh.
So prior to Prohibition in the US, 1920s, the number one selling whiskey in Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, Irish, right? Because that's who are all there. Prohibition hit. The boys in Canada figured out on the market, Irish whiskey number one seller. Let's get that Canadian rye, slap Irish onto it, and sell it into all the speakeasies and bootleg it down. It was shit. So that when Prohibition was lifted, people went in and said, "I'll have Scotch, please." And I swear to God, the Irish drinks industry has been fighting that nightmare for over 100 years.
That's crazy. Holy smokes. Well, we'll see what happens in Canada with the cannabis industry.
Well,
we got BC bud. No, it's not. It's really not.
Well, anyway, there's a whole different ball game.
It is. Anyways, listen, my friend, it's always great to catch up. Thanks for speaking to these changes, because some of them are hard. As we know, the packaging, right? This is going to, be a game changer. But appreciate your perspective and your intelligence on it, Dr. Shane Morris. Appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime, always here.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye.